Thing. How y'all doing this evening? Thank you for joining the BroDiallo broadcast. It's Monday night, so you know how we do. I wasn't here last Monday, of course, because I don't pick cotton at night. Last Monday was in Chicago anyway. Last Monday was Indigenous Peoples Day, the holiday formerly known as Columbus Day, Columbus. And so, I don't pick cotton all night. So if it is a day of observance or a day that we are giving off, I'm taking off. That's just how I do, because that's how I am. I owe it to my ancestors to take every opportunity to take off in this country that is allotted me. So, shout out to everybody who does pick cotton at night, who voluntarily works on days they're given permission to take off. I'm not built that way. So anyway, but beyond that, I'm sorry I missed y'all, but we coming back. Shout out to everybody that's jumped over to African World Order to also lend their support, to subscribe and to support what we're doing over there. So I got to jump in with both feet. I think my son lied to me. I was supposed to go to the gym with him, and he said the gym closes at 11. Now he tells me it closes at 10. So we're going to have to keep this tight. I can't be long, but I must be strong. That's what he said. So anyway, I want to talk about, and let me tell y'all something. I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all where this came from. I saw that Oodles of O's video De La Soul just put out, and watching that Oodles of O's video brought me great joy, and it brought me great sadness. And I'm telling y'all, when I'm in New York, next time I land in New York City, next year, whenever, I don't know. I go to New York at least once or twice a year. Next time I'm in New York, I'm going straight to Oodles of O's. And I don't know if they got vegan donuts, but I'm going to get me one of them terracotta plant teacups. It looks like a terracotta plant pot, but it's an actual coffee mug and a tea mug. I'm telling y'all, I'm on a mission. When I touch down in New York City, don't say nothing. Don't look at me. Don't look for me until after I go straight to Oodles of O's, De La's Donut Shop to get me one of them terracotta. And if they got some vegan or if they got oat milk on deck, then I'll get me an oatmeal latte. But if I don't get nothing else from there, I'm getting that. And so I saw the Oodles of O's video, and then I went out and found one of my 3 Feet High and Rising CDs. Now, I have to tell you, the 3 Feet High and Rising CD I got is bootleg, because for a while, De La was beefing with Tommy Boy. And because De La was bumping heads with Tommy Boy, I, in solidarity with De La, I got me a bootleg copy of 3 Feet. But I bought way back, like 89, 1990, I bought like all shit official. My shit's mad official cassette, official CD. So, when De La gave us permission to go rogue and said, don't buy shit from them till they get their paper right. So I went, I got several downstairs in the car. I got several 3 Feet High and Rising on CD and cassette, all that shit. But, I was digging around in my car, and I'm like, I know it. And I found an old bootleg of 3 Feet High and Rising. I listened to that shit, and I felt heartbroken because we lost Trugoy, the Dove. We lost that brother. And I remember when he was passing. I remember when he passed, and I was like, oh, that's too bad. But it didn't hit me. But then seeing that video and then him talking, the interview afterwards, then I was like, man, I've been with them from day one, and I was one of them cats, in at Bishop Hogan High School. I went to a Catholic high school and was getting punked. Dudes was bucking me. I can't even say I went to some inner city school, no metal detectors, no hyped up, juiced up, belligerent security guards. I went to a goddamn Catholic school. Right on the cusp. It was on Truth. So it was right on the borderline between the good white neighborhoods and the poor black community. It was right there at the dividing line of Truth. And so I had a toe in the affluent community, going to a Catholic school on Truth in Kansas City. And anyway, they used to make fun of me. And one of the nicknames they gave me was De La Soul. Dudes used to be like, "Oh man, you De La Soul," and I got me like some 40 Below Troopers at one time. Those were bootleg too, and everybody made fun of me because at that time in the early 90s in Kansas City, everything was Vallejo, California, West Coast, Dickies, Cortez, Set Trip, and everybody had that California twang to their shit. And here I am, still stuck on the East. I got to choose a coast. I got to choose the East. So I was still listening to East Coast and trying to emulate the old school East Coast 90s grimy, like backpack, headphone, 40 Below Trooper type shit. So they used to call me like, "Oh, dog, you De La Soul, man. Ah, ha, ha," and make fun of me. So that's way back when. That was like my disparaging nickname when I was in high school. And of course, I had me all the 3 foot high. I had like a tie dye and neon green 3 feet high and rising t-shirts. We just leaned all the way into that shit. So it was like one of those times where you're a teen trying to establish your identity and something comes out to speak and to identify who you're like, wow, this music speaks to me. So De La. So anyway, I saw that Oodles of O's and I went and got 3 feet high and rising. I know Oodles of O is on De La Soul is Dead, but for some reason I wanted to hear the initial LP. I didn't even listen to De La Soul is Dead, but that's why I was like, man, I ain't listened to that album in a minute and I need to hear it. And so I started thinking, because I didn't want to talk about chronic disease and premature death. But as you know, if you subscribe, which if you ain't, you a hater. And not the good kind of hater, not the critical, analytical, righteous, revolutionary hater. You are an envious, green-eyed hater, be wishing you had the kind of sneakers and jewelries the next man had. Oh, my baby brother up in here. Yeah, PRT. You used to hear that blasting from my own. That's my baby brother, y'all. I don't care if he's 6'8". He will forever be my little baby brother. Anyway, we were talking about a MC Ka, which in Kemetic language means soul, had passed away. And Skip was hurt, took it mad personal. And I'm sitting across from Skip like, man, I ain't, Skip is usually, man, Skip ain't alpha like us. If Skip is very open and expressive with his emotions, which make it hard to be around him sometimes. Because then that shit starts spilling off on you. You hanging with gangster, you're going to try to be gangster. You hang with emotionally grounded, emotionally mature, and emotionally intelligent dudes. They start making you act that way. They start being expressive, and then you have to, it's just a mess. And I got two, I put shit in my mind vice and I tighten it up like a real man. I keep shit suppressed. But anyway, when he was talking about the Ka and how much that dude's music meant to him, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm a dude, it's there, the music's dope and shit, but it is what it is. But then I saw that Oodles of O's video and I'm like, damn, man, damn. And so anyway, shout out to De La Soul. Can't wait to go to New York and get me a Oodles of O's mug. And I'm going to sit here and proudly, this is my Halloween. Y'all ain't even gave no to my various Halloween theme. And let me just tell y'all right now, the blockbuster, James, moderator, I'm going to tell you, anybody that don't vote for me in this upcoming Halloween, Kenyatta Family Halloween contest, you just don't even come back. Continue to support me. Continue to support my Patreon, buy the merch. Continue to financially support me, but don't watch me no more out of punishment because I'm sick of losing these costume contests. And now my son, he got a little baby girl, and he gonna try to work on y'all emotions and work some costume with his baby girl in it. Don't y'all fall for it. Because I'm coming with it too. And in fact, I might incorporate my son. I don't care. He's 16. I'm going to incorporate my son into my costume if my son incorporates his little 1-year-old daughter into his costume. So if we're going to exploit our children just to get some extra vegan candy, then okay, let's do it. You want to bang? You want to go to war? I take you to war. you know. Yeah, and Scarface is on Netflix, so you know every middle-aged man gonna be out here acting a little different. So if you notice your uncle, your grandfather, if you notice your daddy got a different little swagger, it's because just about every brother in the United States over the last month and a half has probably watched Scarface just recently. So that you know that movie speaks to us as well. If you know, you know. If you don't know, then now you know. Anyway, let's get to the topic, man. No, I want to say something about what was it? People acting like, let me speak about this because I didn't say what I said and I stand on everything I said. Solidarity with all oppressed peoples, solidarity with all anti-colonial, anti-genocide, anti-oppressor, decolonial movements. I didn't say it, it's obvious. I said that I wasn't happy with the ceasefire, call for ceasefire. I don't think that's a wise negotiating tactic. When you're negotiating, you ask for the world. You come to the table demanding everything. You don't start from the bottom. So I say cease Zionism, cease colonization. You know, but I thought that was a relatively weak ask and a weak demand, even though, of course, you want a ceasefire, but you want to end to all hostilities, you know, and you the short-sighted transient type thing. And Israel has broken literally hundreds of ceasefires. Israel has broken as many ceasefires with the Palestinians as the United States has broken peace treaties with the native inhabitants. But y'all want to ask them for something that they'll give you and take. Before the ink dry on the agreement, they'll snatch it back. But I suppose. But anyway, this is what I want to say. What's curious to me is how many Black people specifically are talking about the Holocaust and what's happening and trying to speak to Zionists and people who support Zionists about how what the Jews, disabled people, homosexuals, the Roma. If you've read Mein Kampf, and I've read Mein Kampf, and it was literally an assignment. Shout out to University of Missouri in Kansas City. My Western Civ instructor gave us some sections to read from Mein Kampf as we were talking about the World War II and the industrial era, how the industrial revolution impacted European warfare. But I ended up reading the whole book. And it's curious in that book, Mein Kampf, the people he hates the most are the Roma. The Roma, or as in a disparaging term we have for them is gypsies. But now gypsy is a slur. And if you listen to like the old time, oh, you gypped me, you stole from me, you swindled me, you gypped me, that's a slur. And I tell you all the time, white people got more ethnic slurs for other white people than they have racial slurs for non-white people. So anyway, and if you talk to anybody from Central, Eastern Europe, usually Western Europeans are very slick. They know Western Europeans are like Americans. They know how to couch and hide their racism in civil language and tones. They have coded racism. So you talk maybe to a Frenchman, a German, somebody from the UK, they know how to code their racism like an American. And they have words like in the United States, when a mainstream white person, a person on a payroll that could lose a job, they want to be racist. They say minority, they say urban, they say criminal element. They don't say Black. But if you talk to like a Ukrainian, a Lithuanian, you talk to a Central European, if you talk to somebody, a Turkish European, and you ask them about the Roma people, and they will start to spew bile. They will start to, the Roma, these are the nomadic people of Europe. But anyway, in that book, Mein Kampf, he really goes in on Roma people, and nobody even speaks about it. The Slavic people, the Slavs, what he says about other, like, I understand what he in the World War II and the campaign to wipe out the European Jewry. But there are several groups, and that's weird. And there's a lot of people, because Hitler wanted to kill all communists, thought criminals, He wanted to wipe out the Slavic or enslave the Slavic people and said that they were subhuman. And the Roma Gypsy people. But what's curious is the exact language that Hitler used for Jewish people, European Jewry, is identical, verbatim, word for word, of what the British people used to say about the Irish, prone to criminality, to sexual indiscretion, all that shit. But all that to say, what I'm trying to say is, what's curious to me is that when you as a black person, the rhetoric about, look what happened, now they were subjected to the Nazis and now the Zionists have become the Nazis, and saying that with a level of being surprised, or saying that in order to maybe shock or shame the Zionist, means that you are not aware of the patterns and the tendencies of Europeans and their history. Every single persecuted population of white people became genociders when given the position. They either enacted their own genocide or they were full-on allies or participant in the genocide. So, when we tell them, you went through this horrific thing, don't ever expect a population of Europeans to look at their own experience to inform how they treat other people. So a population of Europeans who have been through ethnic discrimination, displacement from their lands, colonization, and genocide, do not ever find yourself thinking, well, this will inform their relationships or their interaction with us. Now, they will use it. They will come to you and say, we suffered as you have. We understand. They will say that to get you to let your guard down. But there's no way you could have lived under the systems and institutions of white hegemony. And if you're a black person under the age of 1,400 years old, if you're a black under the age of 1,400 years, now if you're a 1,700-year-old black man from certain parts of the world, maybe you can play dumb. Like, oh, wow, word. But if you are an African under 1,400 years old, there's no way for you to play this game. Look at how the Europeans who founded this land, the European founding fathers of the United States, the Puritans, the Pilgrims, the Protestants, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, whatever you want to call the various groups of people who founded this great democracy and embarked on one of the most thorough and complete extermination, colonization campaigns, they were persecuted. They were attacked by their own monarch, and their own monarch sent armies, waves and waves of armies to murder them. They had their labor exploited. Many of them were kidnapped and forced to come here, and they were sent here without proper provisions. So Europeans came here and starved to death and engaged in cannibalism, and they suffered from exotic diseases, fevers, and parasites, and they were abused. And the moment they got freedom, you think the white man in America was like, man, I know what it's like to have your labor, the products of your labor stolen from you. I know what it's like to not have proper resources. I know what it's like to be tortured as a matter of policy and practice and culture. I know what it's like to suffer. Even Europeans, like I said, they were shanghaied. I don't know if that's a racist term. I want to be politically correct. To be some white men during the age of exploration. I'm throwing up finger quotes so aggressively my fingers might cramp. During the age of exploration, you'd be a white man, go to the pub, drink a little bit too much, get hit over the head with a blackjack, and wake up on a boat. Do you think that stopped them to say, well, I'm not going to do that to the African. I'm not going to do that to the native. Hell no, they did it with more vigor because they'd been through it. Don't mention Australia. Y'all just saw the incident in Australia. Somebody went and told that the King Charles, you ain't our king. The people who colonized Australia was a penal colony. Again, people Europeans snatched from their land. And when they had a chance to say, hey, I can unite with the Aboriginal native for freedom, or I can unite with my tormentor, the man who put me in shackles and chains and took me away from my motherland. And the moment the white Australians were given the green light to subject the Aboriginal people to the very atrocities that the British Crown had subjected them to, they did it with a vengeance. Even today, there's this wine called 13 Crimes. They're proud of that shit. There were 19 crimes. I'm sorry. We fucked up. Oh, really? Really? Hold on, y'all. I want to show y'all something. But y'all don't hear me, though. I'm just going to throw anything in here. All right, go on and do it. There's these 19 crimes. These motherfuckers, you think the brother, what did Professor Mackey's grandma say? The bugger got no shame. There's this alcohol called 19 Crimes. Yeah, Snoop Dogg will sell you anything. If he can sell pimping and murder culture. Normally on the wines, there's some white man, but Snoop Dogg is signed. But you see, most of the wines have like this white criminal, like this man's face here. I can enlarge it. This man's face is a penal colony. And so there are 19 crimes that you could have committed to get you kidnapped and sent off to the penal colony, which was essentially a death sentence. And those Europeans who were sent to there by the crown to clear the land, to civilize the land, to subdue the land, they subjected the Aboriginal people to the atrocities that their own white brothers, mostly brothers, women had no political power then, so their own white brothers subjected them to. And you think you could have went to the Australian colonizers and say, hey, weren't you put in rusty iron shackles in the hull of a penal colony ship, and you got gangrene, and sores and pus and parasites eating your skin, and you were sent here and you were fed rotten food and moldy bread in the hull of a ship and brought here against your will and then forced here to labor, and you were given a pickaxe and a shovel and told to clear the land for civilization and conquest. And then when that same man gave you a gun and said, okay, you're no longer a penal colonial worker, you're now a penal we're going to give you a plot of land. Just go over there and shoot that man with the black skin and the curly blonde hair. Go blow his and kill his whole family. And you think the logical thing, he would have taken the gun and shoot the magistrate, the warden, the colonial governor, the duke, the lord. He would have shot the representative of the crown. No, he ran and attacked the very people who had nothing to do with it. But we sit here in 2024 trying to remind the Zionists about the Holocaust. We ain't learned shit. We have not learned shit. Talk about the Boer Wars. Remember that? The first concentration camps on an industrial scale were white British putting white Boers in the white concentration camps. And they still carried out the apartheid regimes and multiple assassination subversions. Come on. So I'm just surprised we still reminding white folks of what they've been through, as if reminding them of what they've been through will awaken their humanity. I've only seen populations of persecuted Europeans use their history of atrocities as a means to delegitimize the oppression. Or Irish, don't get me started on the Irish. The Irish were real good at cozying up to African people, going back to the Haitian Revolution and reminding black people, hey, they colonized me too. They forced me to labor too. Oh, they did me wrong too. And soon as the British, soon as the Anglo-Saxon Protestants say, okay, you're white, abracadabra, you're no longer an Irishman, you're just a white man. They turned on us with a vengeance, burning down our orphanages. And when our children ran out of the Jim Crow and the orphanages, they throw them back in. The coppers, the Irish cop, terrorized black communities for generations. And the moment we say, hey, reparations, they want to come and pretend, oh, we were slave too. And black folks, how many black people going down to St. Patrick's Day parade? Ain't no way. Can't get me out of St. Patrick's Day parade. I batten down the hatches. Y'all brave. You got a lot of heart. You know, if I formed a black gang, I'd be like, our initiation, we ain't gonna jump you in. Just go and march on the St. Patty's Day parade. You can survive a horde of drunk parade goers. You tough enough to be in my gang. So it's just weird to me that we sitting here. I wonder how many African men were being brutalized and lynched by Irish mob and reminded them of their plight. How many Africans in South Africa were being abused and reminded the Afrikaans about their mistreatment. How many Aboriginal brothers and sisters having their land stolen, having their children kidnapped. Go watch the movie Rabbit Proof Fences. Could remind the Australian about his plight under, you know, why are we still doing this? I mean, there's ways to denounce, to speak out against, to expose the hypocrisies without making ourselves seem like we ain't learned the lessons of history. What do they say about people who fail to learn the history of Europeans? What do they say about people who fail to learn the history? And the biggest population per capita of oppressed white folks, the biggest number, the biggest demographic of white folks who ain't learned shit, who spent their entire existence being abused by another population of white people. And then the moment they get close to power, the moment they get a little authority and status, they turn on everybody else and treat us like dirt. Is the white woman is the biggest class traitor. White woman has been defined as property, has been bought, sold, traded by the white man before the white man even knew the world was round, before the white man ever knew wood could float on water to make warships. The white woman was catching hell in Western culture. And the moment she was like, well, okay, we'll give you property rights. I want to buy a slave. We'll give you land rights. I want to take the lands of the natives. We'll let you enlist in the military. I want to commit war crimes in Abu Ghraib. White woman. Yeah. So, you know, try to rewind the white woman, the white cop kicking in brothers' houses and shooting down folks, white women kidnapping. Try to remind those white women about her persecution. Tell her about the witch trials, being burned alive, dunked in water, drowned alive. Remind her about the medieval torture contraptions made specifically to attach to women's breast and women, or to go inside of women's genitalia. What do they call that? That thing they I don't know. You know, I don't know. What y'all want from me? I'm gonna tell it. I'll just tell it. They used to have these instruments They would stick inside of women's cavities, mouth and other cavities. And they would be big enough to fit. But then once you put it inside, you start to turn the screw to open it up to bust people open. So as white women are getting their rights, getting their status, getting their inheritance, we're going to sit here and remind white women, oh, you know, the white man was bringing the hammer down on you. Like one time, a sister, this is a while ago, a few years ago, bed wench was popular. Negro bed wench. People like Tariq Nasheed hates black women. I don't know how one black woman on this planet could. I mean, that man has shown nothing but contempt for African women. And anyway, they were talking about bed wench. So I had somebody send me ask me a question and said, BroDiallo, what's a bed wench? I've been hearing this all over the place, a bed wench. And I knew the answer. So I told the brother, a bed wench, a Negro bed wench, is a black woman who's been reduced to the status of a white woman. Let me show you this. Oh, they never. I'll show you this, and then we're going to talk about chronic disease. But racism is a chronic ailment, a planetary scale. Where is that? Here it is. This is a while ago. When was this? 2017. This guy was like, what is a Negro bed wench? And I said, the short answer is a Negro bed wench is a black woman who's been reduced to the status of a white woman. And so I went in, and I'll share this in the thing. You can read it yourself. I'll share it in the comments. So, because I don't want to get into it. All I'm saying is, you know how futile it would be as a black person going before a white woman who's a judge, who's a loan officer at a bank, who's a police officer, who's a counselor, a teacher, family services, division of family services, social worker. And when she's subjected to who's a nurse or a physician, a white woman who's subjecting you to subhuman conditions and behaviors, and reminding her about the plight of white women and how we should be united in our fight against capitalism and patriarchy. We understand how fucking futile that is. So please, for your own sense of self-respect, to appear not unintelligent, stop reminding these motherfuckers about what they went through in World War II, because they don't give a fuck. They know it better than you. They have archives. They got billions of dollars in reparations, and they used some of that reparations. They didn't use the reparations money to pay back the true victims, but they have archives. Right now, there's a Jewish archive on the campuses of the University of Chicago. There's a report that shit. They know. They got scholars who make a good living off of doing nothing. They got whole warehouses full of artifacts. They chased down every penny that was stolen from them, from Swiss bank accounts to they went all the way to South America, to Buenos Aires, hunting Nazis. They know what the fuck happened to them. And they don't use it to be more humane. They don't use it to oppose genocide. They use it as covering and justification for their genocidal behaviors. So why are we even bringing it up? I mean, make as much sense. I'm not going to be crass. I'm not going to be crass. Just stop it. Oh, look what you went through. I can't believe you're doing this after all you've been through. They don't give a flying fuck. Now I want to talk about chronic disease, because I do want to open up a question. Yeah, Tumblr. Y'all, let me tell y'all something else. Y'all, I don't know who y'all following or who's dictating what to y'all. I'm not a bandwagon cat. Yes, I use Tumblr. It functions. It works. Y'all be like, oh, we don't use that anymore. Why for? I don't understand. You know, y'all ever see that, The Wiz? I'm not going to play it because The Wiz is an it's a colorist movie. They should call that The Wizard of Colorism. The Wiz. But there's a scene in The Wiz where Richard Pryor, there's a scene in The Wiz where Richard Pryor was the wizard, and everybody was wearing one color and doing one dance, and then the wizard would come out and be like, switch, or tell them, scream out, and everybody had to change how they was dressed and change everything they was doing. And it's weird. So yeah, I'm gonna use old shit. Like I said, I'm still on vinyl and CDs. I don't go and use MP3s and all that shit. My wife said we have a family Spotify account and I should need to sign up. I'm like, what that is? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But that's it. We got to stop switching. Oh, and then I was going to say this. I wasn't going to say this. I had this dude tell me that atheism, I can't get into that because I'm going to get into what I get into. I'm going to make a note to say whether or not I'll get into this this guy. It's a weird guy. He made a comment that didn't make sense. I'm like, this comment doesn't make sense. So I clicked on his profile name and went to his profile, and his whole fucking page is just him shooting guns and shit. So I'm like, I don't know if I should debate this guy because he's into guns. And let me tell you, when it comes to people that are really into fucking guns, it's not the guns that bother me. It's the lead contamination. It's not the guns. It's the lead contamination. People that routinely shoot guns and be in spaces where guns are being shot and all that lead powder and lead dust is everywhere. It's weird. I don't like it. So it's not that he has guns. It's just people's capacity to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. But I digress. Let's talk about the topic because, like I said, I kind of told y'all, I've talked about this several times. I guess it's just going to come up from time to time until y'all get it right, until we get it together. But the number one, most of the people listening to me, when we talk about injury, harm, premature death, most of us listening to me, we're not going to go out in a blaze of glory. We're not going to be shot up in a drive-by or taken down by the cops in some unjust thing. Even though all these things happen, we march against these things. We rally against these things. We organize and prepare ourselves for these eventualities or potentials. But the vast majority of African people listening to me right now are going to be afflicted with and suffer from chronic disease. And if their life is to be cut short or their capacity is to be lost, their ability to see, to speak, to walk, to connect and contact with each other, to enjoy the various pleasures in life, from sex to being able to touch and feel the touch of other people due to neurological damage, the vast majority of us are going to be failed by chronic disease. And we've been taught that these chronic diseases, oh, it's just natural, it's just the Lord's will, it just comes with aging. When reality, science, social science, medical science, neuroscience has determined, has demonstrated that the same thing that is causing our youth to be shot down in the street, to violence, causing us our brothers and sisters to succumb to addiction, drug addiction, overdose, the racism and capitalist greed and exploitation. The same source of police brutality is the same thing that brings us premature death. The lifespan of a black man in this country is more than a decade beneath the higher. And that's the high end of the bell curve. So the average life expectancy is more than a decade. And black men aren't dying prematurely. Black men aren't dying prematurely because there's no technology, there's no resources, there's no medicine, there's no understanding, there's no comprehension, there's no ability. We're dying because it is economically and politically and socially and culturally expedient. The resources to mitigate and end the premature death of African men is within the abilities, within the budget, within the technological capacity of this society. But there is no will from within, no will from us or without. I say all the time, and I need y'all to share this with other people. If they covered chronic disease the same way they covered crime, this country would be completely reoriented. If I go out here right now and I bust my gun, I shoot at some brother and brother shoot back at me, we will be on front page of the news. It will be hours after the ambulance and the coroner that took away the body, the fire department that washed away the blood, and the tape is all gone. And there will be a news reporter there a whole day after. Behind me, it's nothing behind them. Behind me is the scene of the shooting on the south side of Chicago. Whoop, 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 whoop. And they're sitting there and there's nothing there. Like, you could have told me from the studio what was happening. Why the fuck do you have a satellite van beaming this message across the city on something that is over with? And if we survive, they'll go out and stand outside the hospital. One of the shooters, one of the suspects is now inside under surgery, critical condition. Or they'll go to the jail. I'm here outside of the detention center. One of the suspects, several of the suspects are now being arraigned right here today. If they covered chronic disease, if they went and stood outside of a pharmaceutical plant and say, here's the pharmaceutical plant where they're manufacturing insulin, and the average insulin that they're manufacturing in this facility costs $8 for completion, and the $8 includes all of the materials, the advertising, promotion, distribution, trucking, storage. Costs about $8 per vial, but they're selling it for $250 on the open market. Oh, here's the CEO now. Follow me, Mr. CEO. If they covered it like that, if every day a pharmaceutical CEO tried to walk from his penthouse to his luxury automobile or his chauffeur limousine to get to the corporate headquarters, and they had reporters, sir, you want to explain? If they were standing there saying, we're outside of the surgery center, we're outside of the dialysis center, and since they've opened, this is a private dialysis center that's making all this profit. And here are the family members and the community members on a conveyor belt coming into the dialysis center. The amputees, the blindness, the gangrene. If they saw and they showed this on TV every day and satellite, if they covered chronic disease, if they went out to the biohazard and biomedical disposal and say, this is where your family members, their limbs, their toes, their feet, this is where this is where they dispose of your body parts. People would understand, well, damn, I'm out here. They got us out here thinking, I'm gonna get me a gun. Got middle class, educated black people who live in affluent neighborhoods where their statistic of getting into a car accident, being maimed or killed in a car accident is 10 times higher than their potential of being shot in a gang war. But they'll strap up to prevent the gang war. But they don't think twice. Hey, I'm driving, I'm in control. What is going to take you down, more likely, is not those kids hanging out in the parking lot, but those products inside the grocery store on the aisles. But we don't have no consciousness of it. Your family members could call you and say, oh, so-and-so. You can have 2 dozen people in your own family with type 2 adult onset diabetes. And you're like, yeah, you know. But let one person in your family get shot. And I'm not saying don't show the shock and the despair and rally around the one family member that gets shot. But imagine if we had that same position about family members. You'd never stop with the shock. So I say this all the time. If they covered, but that's why they don't. They want us to be afraid of other black people. They want us to be afraid of young black men. They want to paint young black men as predators or a potential or a constant threat in our community. They don't want us to be afraid of the products we buy from them. The overpriced pharmaceuticals, the denatured, overprocessed, chemically laced food like substances, fast food. They don't want us to be afraid of the shit that can harm us. They want us to be afraid of those that we should be connected to. And we fall for it enthusiastically. I'm telling you, in my own life, I've talked to African people sitting in a motorized wheelchair, taking 20 to 25 different prescription medications that they can't afford. Haven't had their gallbladder removed, their bowel resectioned, 2 or 3 open heart procedures. And they sitting there talking about these kids around here these days, these kids is crazy. Now I understand there's more to it than that. And moving on, there's another thing I have to say, which is something we also do. We victim blame. So I'm telling you that the same thing that causes us to have higher rates, sometimes 3 times, 30% higher instances of chronic disease and ailment than the white population. Quadruple, triple. Just like we have higher rates of homicide, higher rates of incarceration, and higher rates of chronic disease, heart disease, kidney failure, liver failure, rheumatoid arthritis, neurological disruption, stroke. The same thing that cause higher, but we see it more. The shit that's fucking up our liver and kidneys is microscopic. Where the bullet they shoot us, we can see it. We understand it. It's visceral. It's immediate. That's why the vast majority of people in the United States were able to sleepwalk through the genocide in Palestine, because it was a slow, pragmatic genocide over time, a chronic genocide. That's what we are very comfortable with chronic genocide, because we're living on top of a chronic genocide right here. The Native American people are still, hell, we are victims of chronic, slow genocide. But when they start shooting and bombing people, oh, that gets us up. That makes us uncomfortable. So we don't mind dying prematurely over a decade from environmental factors for economic profit. But we do mind when, don't shoot me. Shoot me up with insulin, but don't shoot me with bullets. And I understand, I'm not even blaming, but we do a lot of victim blaming. We try to act like black folks are unhealthy because we don't know how to act. We don't know how to eat. We don't have, what they call, we live in food deserts, and we don't know how to shop, and we like junk food too much. We like greasy food too much. We like fried food too much. That's why we victim blaming. Same thing. If you just cooperate with the police, if you just listen, if you just follow instructions, you won't get shot. If you keep your credit score up and you invest properly and you go to the bank, they won't deny you loans. If you just eat right and pay attention to your nutrition, you got nothing to worry about. See, we can behave ourselves in such a way to render ourselves exempt from racism and the consequences of living under omnicidal oppression. Just all in how you flex. I just saw a meme today where some woman had posted like, I pledge allegiance to the bag. But we can't victim blame. Now, as I sit here, don't think I'm going to sit here and tell you, just like I wouldn't sit here and tell you the economic exploitation can be solved if we make our coffee at home and don't buy our children Jordans or force our women to take off the acrylic nails, then we will all be rich. I'm not going to sit here and say, eat a balanced diet and do 10 push-ups. There is no panacea. There is no one solution. And harassing Black men about going to the hospital. Now, we really understand where we say women get assaulted and abused and they don't go to the police. And there are some unintelligent people who say, well, if you got touched, how are these women coming out after 10 years on Cosby? How are these women coming out of the woodworks on P. Diddy? How are these women claiming they were assaulted, claiming they were abused, and they just now coming out after 10, 20, 30 years? Why Anita Hill have to wait for Clarence Thomas to get to the Supreme Court before she spoke up? Now many of us are starting to understand. Now, I know from a long time ago, many times that if you are a victim of abuse, the primary abuse can come in the back alley in your own home where someone attacks you, assaults you. But the police are a secondary abuser. And I don't have to explain that, but the healthcare industry. I told y'all again, I've worked in trauma centers. And they had a special, I'll just call it, we didn't say this but it was basically the rape room. Because I'm just going to repeat that when a woman is assaulted, her body is treated not like a human who's been assaulted, but like a crime scene. So you have various people, like literally, I've seen people like examining a woman's genitalia, combing and probing her genitalia and taking pictures of her wounds. And while the police are there with a notepad talking to her, and she's splayed out within hours of being assaulted. And everybody's there checking their box. They are doing their duty. No, you get a chest x-ray and she has lacerations on her elbows. Let's elbow her x-rays and we got to come collect samples, fluid samples. Let's swab her mouth in case, because and didn't you wonder why a sister be like, I'm gonna go home and take a shower, call my girlfriend, fuck that. It's logical. But it's the same thing for Black men, because they get on Black men a lot, like, brothers go to the hospital. Brothers go to the hospital. When any Black person has an issue with an institution, you need to examine the history of our people with that institution. At least as critically as you examine that person's reluctance, distrust. I've seen many of Black people, and I'm going to just say the words, Truman Medical Center, go into the hospital for help and walk out in handcuffs because of some authoritarian physician, some authoritarian PA, some authoritarian RN, who that even though you're in pain, discomfort, you're afraid for your life, you better do everything I tell you to do the way I tell you to do. I've literally seen people so injured. A man that got sliced, got cut and stabbed to where you could see his lungs expanding and contracting. And the doctor that was attending to him was complaining that he was screaming too loud. It's like, stop screaming. And I've seen, so you see this young brother who had that experience, and then you want him to go get a colonoscopy and wonder why he don't want to fuck with the hospital. Or he just skips out on his doctor's appointment and you think it's because he don't care about his health. There have been dentists, Medicaid dentists, who have been locked up for sadistic torture of children, where they were doing unnecessary medical procedures in the most painful way possible for profit, and because they got off on causing black children pain. This book right here, this sister literally wrote the book on experimentation, torture, neglect, abuse of African people. And now we out here on social media, black men go to the doctor. What's wrong with black men refuse to go to the doctor? Same when they say black people refuse to call the police or refuse to talk to the police. That's victim blaming. We have, and I don't trust a black person who don't has that lacks distrust for the system. So, our chronic disease, black people have higher rates of stress hormones in our bloodstream, persistent stress hormones, cortisol, epinephrine, neuroepinephrine. The stress hormones affect not just your physiology, but your capacity to think. These hormones are present in African women when they are pregnant, and they literally orient and prioritize the child's genetic and biological makeup. When a woman experiences high stress in pregnancy, the children are more sensitive to light, more sensitive, their newborn offspring, more sensitive to light, more sensitive to noises, more sensitive and retractive to touch. And they found infants that have harder ability, more difficulty with learning and emotional expression. Racism is literally affecting us in the womb, and that doesn't count the number of African women dying giving birth, or the African children that die prematurely or during birth or within a year of their birth. Again, all the resources and technology are there. Yes, epigenetics, that's the term, that's the fancy word for it. So you can have genetic coding for health, and to be a completely healthy person, but because of epigenetics, because of stress hormones and other environmental factors, that healthy genetics can be rewired or suppressed. You could have the code for a pathological process, cancer or whatever, and you could suppress the manifestation of that genetic predisposition through epigenetics, proper environment, proper processing of stress. So Africans have a much higher rate of chronic stress, higher hormones, because we can't just walk into a car dealership and say, well, I didn't get the car because I don't qualify. I didn't get the job because there were more worthy applicants. Well, I was suspended, or I faced this consequence that anyone would have faced if they had conducted themselves in the same way. Every African person, and even these Negro Uncle Tom boot licking handkerchief head Uncle Toms, every African person deals with it. The issue is it because I'm black? Every intelligent black person. Now, I don't. I'm probably the only black person that don't deal with that, because I know it ain't because I'm black. It's because they're white. They don't do the things that they do because I'm black. They do the things that they do because they're white. And I wish I could teach. I've been telling y'all, but y'all ain't listening. Y'all don't hear me though. Oh. Y'all don't hear me though. They don't treat us the way they treat us because we are black. They do it because they are white. Epinephrine and norepinephrine can be detrimental in a chronic stress state, because they affect metabolism, heart rate, blood pressure, and sugar levels. So they can be harmful. I don't know where you get that from. No hormones are unhealthy, innately unhealthy. But when you are subjected to them in a chronic state, they can. you want? Come do the show, man. Hey, you come do this. You come sit here and do this. I literally said chronic stress hormones. I literally said the word chronic stress. Literally, chronic is in the name of today's show. You're the one having trouble with context clue. If you want to argue, we can argue. I don't mind arguing, but at least pick a fight that's okay, it's your field. I literally said chronic. I've been saying the chronic. Chronic disease is the topic of the day. What? I'm just going to send my script to Brother Brian. You are arguing. Don't argue with me. Boy, I'm from Kansas City. Show me state. That's all we do is argue and suffer. Those are our two favorite pastimes besides up until the Chiefs started winning. Now it's arguing, suffering, and football. But back when I was young, the Chiefs was a sucky team. So we didn't even have that. So anyway, let's go a little bit in. We got some experts, some authoritas, some smart asses in the audiences. I ain't gonna argue with you either, Byron. As long as you said, but I don't know how you're gonna say. Let me go back to that. Maybe I'm wrong because he is like, oh yeah, the chronic, chronically. Ain't nothing. Adrenaline's good, estrogen's good, testosterone's good. But you get elevated levels of that shit in your blood, your doctor is gonna be like, what is you talking about? Anyway, where was I? Then throw me off. Increasing my cortisol levels, my C-reactive protein levels. Anyway, so chronic disease is our number one killer. The mainstream medical industry, of which Byron is a part of, will try to teach us that such things can be remedied by for-profit medicine. There is a degree of truth to that, but everything in this society is corrupted by the profit motive. And a lot of times we get upset about things that are to be blamed on capitalism. So we interact with medicine, and Black people have a healthy distrust and disdain for medicine, big pharma, the pharmaceutical industry, and even for the medical industry. But what dictates anybody who works, because Byron works in the medical or pharmaceutical or some type of health related field, will tell you, any medical facility will tell you cash is king. So the whole medical facility, their policies, their procedures, the limitations that they place on the healthcare workers, and the level of service they provide to the patient, it's all based on budget, even for the free clinic. And when the money run out, the place shut down. Pharmaceutical medicine and healthcare should be based on need, not on ability to pay or the ability to generate revenue, but it is. And therefore, it is dysfunctional. I say all the time, the moment you put a price on something, you devalue it. The moment you put a price on something, you devalue it. The moment you put a price on something, you devalue it. That's all Umar does is just repeat shit 3 times, and y'all gave him $500,000. So maybe I'm going to try that. So, and if you don't believe me, go out there and tell people how much money you will accept for your child. Even if you say, if somebody gave me $10 billion, I give them my child. People will look at you like, wow, you're shit. And now we live in an economic system that seeks to put a price on everything and therefore devalues everything. But that's a whole nother discussion. Let's talk about, and I guess I could hit y'all with the statistics, but it's not just internal. It's not just stress, hormones, blood pressure, and other internal physiological issues. We also have environmental issues, lead, dioxin, other toxins in the food, many of the toxins, neurotoxin, hormone mimicking products. So there are neurotoxins in that are allowed in the food, that none of these things that are in the food actually will harm you in one small dose. But if you consume them over time, many of them are stored in our fatty tissue. That's why a lot of ailments women will suffer from more so than men, even though women tend to have healthier practices than men because they have a higher interstitial level of interstitial fat than men do. So, and fat cells, adipose cells, are storage cells. So if you're consuming many of these, a small amount of the toxins or the chemicals will be urinated, defecated, and even sweated out in your pores. Very not enough to, don't go sit in no sweat lodge. I'm gonna talk about pseudoscience and miracle cures a little bit if I got time, because we fall into these miracle cures and these grifters who are harming people. Dr. Sabi, no, I'm sorry, Dr. Sabi. That's how I was supposed to say. These grifters and these liars and these pseudoscience. Dr. Sabi, hachu. And I ain't gonna be mad at you for falling for it because I fell for it. You know, I've been more than my purification diet and prune juice fast. You know, I've been on that weird shit too. So I'm in this with you. I'm talking about us. I'm not above you. Most days, most BroDiallo shows, I'm up above shouting down at you, but I have to come down to y'all level. Yada, hachu, yada. I have to come down to y'all level. So there are many environmental factors. We are well aware of now of environmental racism. African people and Native Americans and other oppressed populations live on the most polluted areas, live in the areas, like I said, my housing project was right across from the city landfill. They literally damn near, the city landfill, toxic landfill, was just a few miles over a creek in the clearing. Here's the East Hills Village projects, and here's the Kansas City, Missouri landfill. They put our fucking projects. So we are subjected to not just psychological, psycho-emotional, internal attacks, assaults from the system. There are also physical assaults. African children have higher levels of average blood lead levels, and we know the issues. And many of these things, I probably was too broad. I could have just do one show on kidney disease, one show on heart disease, one show on neurological stroke, and early onset dementia, and another show just on tooth decay. Oh, and with your teeth. And now the teeth is a vanity thing now. Everything from cataract to heart failure can be associated with improper maintenance of one's teeth and gums, oral infections that go untreated or undiagnosed. So, and I could, like I said, I could just do, but so I'm sorry to speak so broadly, and maybe we will take time to talk about them individually. I can even get like cardiologists and stuff on here. But all of that, hey, calm down now. Calm down. Let's not go too far. As I sip my sweet tea, calm it down. Now, OO and Byron, y'all just calm it down now. Don't mess with my sweets. Now, what else have I got? But you're right. Fucking right. Fucking nerd. Yes, sugar. White. White bread, white sugar. If it's white, it ain't right. So anyway, I think we also have to understand the difference between treatment, cure, and prevention. We want to start with treatment. No, we want to start with prevention. I'm sorry. We want to start. No, it's nasty. That shit nasty. Fuck stevia. It has a weird little funny aftertaste. If the Lord put sugar here, the Lord put sugar here. If he didn't want us to have it, he wouldn't have put it here on God's green earth. Oh, COVID. Go back. I think they deleted my COVID shows. But I talked about COVID and the fallacy of comparing COVID and Black people's issues with COVID with the Tuskegee experiment, how they didn't line up historically. And I don't know if Prester John's here today with his lunacy. I did a few shows on COVID. But one show I was describing the myths surrounding COVID, from 5G causing COVID and all this other ivermectin. I was literally listing the various myths associated with COVID. And they said that I was promoting those myths, and they deleted the video because I was listing myths. So if you sit here and list crimes, or if I list drugs, then and acknowledge that the drugs exist, then I'm obviously advocating the drugs. That's how YouTube censorship works. Weirdos, freak skeezers, and weirdos. Anyway, where was I? We have to understand, we should start with prevention. We should be open to treatment, but our ultimate goal is cure if something can be cured. Some diseases can't be cured. They can only be mitigated or treated. Others can be cured or fully reversed, especially if you catch the chronic ailment in stage. But also, it goes to first understanding that your personal individual chronic health problems are a systemic societal issue. It is a systemic, even though you are the individual suffering, and there are certain individual mitigations and preventative measures you can employ, your ultimate obligation is to engage collectively to change on a societal level, on a societal and environmental, ecological, community scale. Now, I would like to be able to say, hey, go find, first thing you do, one, is get a Black family physician, but that is inadequate. When our first son was born, who's now 22, we ran to Harlem, New York, and got this Black doctor and this Black woman, and you walk into her doctor's office, and this beautiful mahogany wood carvings and that Haitian hardwood carved mask. It was very Afrocentric, very Black. And my wife walked in there and was like, yes, this woman, pediatrician, she's going to be my personal physician. Now, we lived in Brooklyn, and we had this 1968 little red Volkswagen Bug. 1968 Volkswagen. I had to drag this pregnant woman all the way to Harlem because she wanted a Black woman to be her physician, her pediatrician. She wanted a Black woman with cultural and blah, blah, blah. And then what can I say? I wasn't alpha then, so I didn't put my foot down. But anyway, long story short, my wife was like, I'm going to do a home birth. I'm going to have a natural home birth with a midwife. I intend to breastfeed my child. Do breast milk, no formula, and just making her provisions. And do you know that the son was born at home? She was breastfeeding, and the pediatrician was like, you need to present that child because you didn't have the child in the hospital. And you need to bring that. And my wife was like, I just had the baby a day or two ago. I'm resting and recuperating. And I will bring, as soon as I'm up for the travel from Brooklyn to Harlem, as soon as I'm up, I will bring the baby. Now, her patients who had their children in hospitals, they could wait upwards of a month or more before they made their first schedule. But because we did natural home birth and we were vegan and pro-Black, she knew we were activists. She knew who we were. She threatened to call child services on us. She threatened to call child services on us. This Black Afrocentric physician said, you either take that baby to a hospital or bring that baby into my facilities within hours of its birth, because that home, that African monkey shit don't work around here. We scientific. Now, not to mention that the midwife was this Caribbean sister who trained in Harvard. She was credentialed out the box. We checked. And we followed all of the prenatal shit, and from all the prenatal checkups, everything was good. The child was born and given a clean bill of health. She threatened to call fucking family services on us. This Black Afro, and I would say her name, but it's my son's 22 years old. I don't even know if she's still in practice. But I wasn't on social media back then, or I would have snitched. So my wife had to get up while she was still healing and get on. We didn't take the car. I don't know why we took the train. She got on the train, took our son up to 125th Street, got off, and we went up there to the doctor's office so that this Black, and it was too late to switch physicians at that time, and she was already threatening to call the authorities. So we take baby Oromo. So weird to even say baby Oromo. I was just downstairs talking to him. He's like 6'3" and a father his damn self. Man, time is a bastard. So she comes in there, she examines baby Oromo. And she has an attitude at this point because we dared to question her. We dare to think that we are capable. Two college-educated Negroes. Yeah, we look like hippie. We look like, backwoods, nappy head hippies or whatever she was thinking. Yeah, we looked that way, but we were some, we knew our shit. We did our research. So she gave the baby a clean bill of health. And then she wants to try to be like, okay, now that the real authority has been respected, now we can move forward. And we got back to Brooklyn and immediately dumped her and moved over to another and just fucking. But so all I'm saying is, don't be fooled. Don't let them fool you. Don't get tricked. It's not enough just to have a black physician. You must have a physician that is conscious. Now, I don't know, revolutionary, pro-black, whatever your terms are, don't just look on the surface. You could have Dr. Clarence Thomas on your ass. Home birth is not, oh my God. Oh, I thought you said, yeah, so true. Yeah, she wasn't the one who was there for the delivery. She was our child's pediatrician. Yeah, I'll let my wife tell the story. I'll let her tell the story. She tells it better than me. But yeah, home birth was legal, but I don't think child services would have had a case. But the fact that she fucking called them, the fact that she threatened to call child services on us. So all I'm saying is, you got to understand the values, the approach, the disposition, the outlook. We've been fortunate enough, especially as our children have come up, to find a lot of anti-establishment physicians, a lot of trained professionals who understood that the system is racist, unjust, profit-oriented, and that were willing to work around, navigate, and help us navigate the system to get our medical needs addressed while shielding us from the ravages of that same system. So a lot of times we would have to, wherever we lived, New York, Kansas City, here in Chicago, like here, we're switching now, but we have a family physician who is not a vegan himself, but a lot of his patients are vegan because he understands and has done research and understands the vegan diet, vegan requirements. So we don't even have to walk in and start to explain to him over and over and over. So you just got to get a physician that understands your values, where you're coming from, and a physician that is not authoritarian. A lot of physicians are like, I spent all this money to go to school and now I am the authority. And it is a lie. I worked with doctors for years. They don't know shit but what they know. They know what they know and nothing more. And a lot of the specialists, you have a physician that understands the skeletal muscular system, the endocrine system, everything about it. But they don't even understand how it interrelates with other systems of the body in the larger society. So you have to engage with your physician as, my body, my choice does not just apply to pregnancy and abortion. Now, don't walk in there with some shit you saw on YouTube. I find that physicians, when you demonstrate to them that you are actively engaged in your care and well-being, and that you're willing to put in the work and the effort to understand what is being told, what is being recommended, if you can even walk in, if you walk in there with some goddamn crystals and coppers and talking about radiant energy and your chakras, the physician's going to look at you like I look at you. You have to understand what is pseudoscience versus science, what has been confirmed, studied, verified, and what has been just pulled out of somebody's nether regions. And I'm so sorry to say this, but your main goal should be to find a physician that will partner with you, that will work with you, that will coordinate with you, that will listen to your questions, and that asks you questions, that inquire about your desires, your goals, your capacity. If you have a physician that's just telling you shit, yo, this, that, do that, that, you have to find a physician and say, not just ask you how you're feeling or what can I do for you, but like I said, inquires about your goals, inquires about your apprehensions, your reservations, a physician that always talks to you in options. We can do this, this, or that. This is what's available to you, that is willing to discuss with you prognosis and process. And that's for all care providers. And I know with this new HMO type shit, they want to get you in and get you out quick. But you should go in there and say, I'm in here to work with this professional. Respect, give them respect. Got to give respect, all of that. But I have to say, don't just walk in, oh, it's a black doctor, a black care provider, so I'm good. More likely you can do that with a black one than a non-black one, but don't do that. But I have to say, most of my black care providers, I haven't had those type of nightmarish issues with, by and large. But I have had some. And I encourage you to do that for yourself. And I ain't even going to say names because I've had those level of encounters here in Chicago. But I talked to some people and they say, well, they were good to me. So it could have just been personal to me or something. So I ain't really going to say, well, I had a bad experience with this black person and then out them like that when their overall reputation seems to be more positive than negative here in Chicago. But, you know, before I go and say something, I will check people out. Even if I have a bad experience, I'll go check you out in a larger community. And if I see you doing shit, everybody's getting harmed, then I'm going to say it. But if I see there's mixed, then I'm like, well, maybe that was just me. But anyway, for a moment, let me just talk about the pseudosciences, the pseudo cures. I recommend every African person adopt a vegan, holistic diet. Whole foods, fruits, vegetables, organic, all that. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that is how I live, that's going to cure or prevent ailments. We vegans can have obesity, diabetes, and all the other shit. Because there are things within your control, but like I said, most diseases, when you find a disease ravaging a society, there are more social, communal factors contributing to that than there are individual factors. And I know you'll go on social media and look at these motherfucking gurus sitting in some tropical place in the Mediterranean Sea, eating eucalyptus flowers and telling you this is how you must live. I understand, what it's like to try to live, raise kids, keep your head above water, making a way when you can, temporary layoffs, and then you got some guru on the other side of the fucking planet benefiting from colonial oppression, benefiting from the colonial conditions that many of these paradise places. You will literally have people. I was just in South America. And you see a lot of these influencers, these health and wellness influencers holding coconuts, freshly picked coconuts in their hand. And if they flip the fucking camera around, right behind them is nothing but shanty towns and oppression and a U.S. military base. But if you turn the camera this way, it's forest and greenery. So a lot of these influencers are taking advantage of the colonial disparities where you could take your Yankee dollar, where I could take a US dollar into a third world currency exchange and walk out with thousands and bundles, thousands of pesos and ball out. It's like, what's his name? Russell Simmons talking about he's a billionaire. He's in Bali living like a king because of that colonial situation. But I digress. You see a lot of these gurus that are full of shit. I have to tell you, the biggest myth, pseudoscience that relates to Black people and health is blessing your food. Praying over your food in no way changes the molecular makeup, the nutritional value, or the physiological impact of that food. Praying over your food is I just was with my family, and we got together and had a dinner after a family event, and it was like a half a dozen prayer. First, there was a minister there, and the minister had to pray over the food. Nobody even asked him. He just brought it upon himself. And then the elder of the family, the oldest member, the matriarch, she said a prayer over the food. And then there was like 3 different prayers. Like, goddamn. And I sit there respectfully. You know, I didn't flip the table. I don't know how y'all think we get down. I did not flip the table. I sit there quietly and allow people to go about their rituals. But just let me know if if um if you believe blessing the food, praying over the food will any way mitigate the damaging effects of unhealthy food on your body. It does not help. Now we look at these people with copper and crystals and miracle cures, and we make fun of them. And the moment you look at Yada and Yada online telling black women if they eat a fruitarian raw food diet, they'll stop menstruating, we'll be like, ha ha, that dude's a fool. And then we walk home, oh Lord, bless this food we're about to receive for the nourishment of our bodies. So that's the biggest pseudoscience of them all. Blessing food does nothing. And I don't know if I have to say this or not, but it's just something I've been around my whole life. And maybe I'll start asking folks, when you bless food, do you believe that makes something that was not good? Because they say bless the food for the nourishment of our body. And I'm like, you think this denatured process, dead food, is more nutritious? This fortified, enriched, chemically enhanced, biomedically engineered food is now, because it's blessed, going to do any different to your body than it did before? So, but I did kind of mention magnets, crystals, yoni eggs, all those things that we do for our health have no peer-reviewed scientific foundation. There is no evidence. Now, I do understand, just like we were talking about emotional, psychological harm, some of these things, if they bring you comfort through the ritual, through the tradition, through praying over your food. Today's my grandmother who raised me, today's her birthday. And, you know, if I carry out some type of action that helps to remind me of her, to connect me with her, or to show my respect and appreciation for her and what she's done in my life, that's good. That's healthy. But there is a fine line between something being an emotional support, something that connects you to other people. We all sit here and pray around the table, to becoming a pseudoscience where you really believe, where you really try to attribute some material, physical change to this non-material event. So I'm not telling you not to bless your food. I'm not telling you not to stop on the street and buy a copper ring from the copper man. But this shit, this Reiki energy healing, I'm sorry. I wish it did work. But we, because of African people, because of our distrust, because we were experimented on, this book has at least the whole book, from prisoners to chattel slaves to unwitting, uninformed communities have been experimented on. But because of our natural distrust, our inherent and our healthy and our appropriate distrust of the establishment, when you hear the word laboratory, when we see the only thing scarier in the black community than a person in a policeman uniform is a person in a fucking lab coat. We are also tend to lend ourselves to demagogues and teach us pseudoscience and give us Pangea. Anybody telling you this one single act or this one single behavior is the cure to all, eat one meal a day, eat raw foods. You know, anybody giving you some panacea, and a panacea is one thing that cures everything, they're more likely than not trying to con you. Sometimes they'll con you to get money. But even so, more valuable to many of these gurus, more valuable to them than your dollars is their influence over you. You having reverence and looking up to them. So stop. As African people, we have to be more scrutinizing. Yes, y'all saying names. Y'all saying more names than me. Yes, another pseudoscientific con man. Eating one meal a day. Oh, just stop eating pork. And if you stop eating swine, I've had to counsel so many people to get off of that pescatarian diet, fish only diet. It's so harmful. Fish and chicken. Oh yeah, I only eat poultry. That shit. I'll just let's just get back on track. Be wary of miracle cures, pseudoscientific cures, and I know being a vegan since 1992, my last time of having a Reese's peanut butter cup, an old school Reese's peanut butter cup, my last time eating, but it was because actually I became, I stopped eating pork first, but I was still eating dairy and cows, and then I stopped with the pork, and then I stopped with red meat, and then at one point I would just only eat basically foods that had eggs and dairy. I would eat yogurt and mainly vegan. Then I became vegan, so I didn't even like just to get to go out with a bang. But anyway, I've been vegan since 1992, and throughout my vegan journey I've been a raw foodist, a fruitarian, a raw food. I didn't eat anything that was cooked. I was a fruitarian. I only ate foods that brought forth seed. I didn't eat any food, not even like vegetables that didn't bring forth seeds. I used to go on these extended water only fast. I've done all the guru shit. Much of that shit is okay, but if you don't know what you're doing, if you're not under the care of a nutritionist or a physician oversight, getting your blood work done, it can be harmful, extremely harmful. But let me tell you, none of that shit is going to cure what ails the African community, even if we all went vegan tomorrow. It would help. There are some things that mitigate it. I'm saying those are preventative measures, but they are not cures because this problem is not individual. It is social science, and it is social, and it is collective. It is systemic. You can lower or reduce your risk factors. I think people should eat a diet that is relatively low. I don't like the term processed food because if you buy a salad, it's processed. Process is when you take something and you chopping something up is processing it. So if I buy cut lettuce or pre-cut mangoes from the vendors, I go buy, that's a processed food. So, but if you buy foods that are nutrient dense, you should eat a nutrient dense, varied diet. You should eat a diet from a wide range of sources. Vegetables, fruits, try to eat we are foraging omnivores. That's what we're not really, but that's how we are today. So eating a diet that does, eating foods that are not denatured is more so than processed. So food that is shelf stable, where I saw this one nutritionist who I used to respect, but not no more. He said you should eat from the periphery of the grocery store. So you notice most of the things that are around, that's where the refrigerated section, the produce section is, because the places, things that are self-stable, what has to happen is food, in order to manufacture food for profit, you have to take away the food's ability to rot or decay. And what causes the rot or decay are enzymes and fiber. Food naturally must break down, whether it's breaking down from being consumed, masticated, and swallowed and digested, or whether it breaks down from falling to the ground and returning to the soil. So but if I could stop an apple from turning into mush, then I can ship it all over the world and generate profit. I could sell it in the off season. So they remove the enzymes, or they burn them out. They radiate food. They treat food. They go through artificial mastication or processing to remove the fiber. So you want to eat food that is enzyme, nutrient, and fiber rich. You want that to be the bulk of your diet. There are some cheats you have, like frozen broccoli. For certain fruits, they can be frozen, thawed, and cooked, or cooked frozen, and they still maintain a high level of fiber. But I'm not even going to tell you what specifically to eat. Protein, again, protein is most foods contain, your body can even engage in what is called protein synthesis. So you can consume protein, or you can consume, if your diet is wide ranged enough and varied enough, you don't have to really worry about any type of protein deficiency. That's not really seen outside of starvation conditions like the Arabs are causing in Sudan. So anyway, it's better to have guidelines than have a diet. It is better to have guidelines than have a diet. Because if you start to get into like strict diets, you'll tend to get pigeonholed, and you'll get an abundance of some type of nutrients or some type of beneficial food, and you'll exclude a lot of other beneficial foods. So, and then how you cook them, you want to prepare food in such a way that maintains the fiber, maintains the nutrient content. You don't want to overheat, overcook, overfry. But then, all that to say is, your diet is essential to your health. But you have to determine for yourself. If you coming to me, I'm going to say go vegan. Because then you're eating for your own health and the health of the environment, and showing, the proper respect to other living beings and creatures. Well, hey, don't tell me that. Tell what? I don't understand what you're saying. It's not all Arabs. Did I say Arabs? All Arabs? That's like not all men. So you're on that not all men thing too? Do I have to say the Janjaweed? Okay, the Janjaweed, the Islamic nationalists, the Islamic colonizers of North Africa. I'm sorry I didn't get to there are Arabs doing it. Now, if you want me to name the specific population of Islamicists committing the atrocities, I suppose. Not all Arabs. I didn't say all Arabs. Yes, the Arabs in Sudan. So that is a specification. Saying the Arabs in Sudan is a specification. I'm not talking about the Arabs in Palestine. I talked about them earlier in the show. Are the Arabs in Sudan facing genocide, or are the Arabs in Sudan committing genocide? I said the Arabs in Sudan. What more specification do I need? Exactly. I forgot what I said. I'm not playing semantics. The Arabs in Sudan are committing genocide against the Black Africans in Sudan. So the Arabs in Sudan, if you're Arab outside of Sudan, I don't think you should be offended by what I said. That's like if you say the black men in the Supreme Court, the black man on this, not all Arabs. Wow. I said the Arabs in Sudan. And I don't think I'm playing semantics. I'm saying there's a genocide taking place in the Horn of Africa. If I say the Arabs in Libya have open air slave markets, the Arabs in Western Sahara have African slaves, I can't talk about what the Arabs in North Africa are doing, because the Arabs in Palestine are under genocide. So I have to pretend that the Islamic colonization of North Africa isn't happening. Okay. So my community is under genocide. You say the Arab slave markets, Arabs enslaving and selling and buying African people on lands they took from us, was provoked by Western intervention. So I live in the United States under Western oppression. And because I live under Western oppression, I'm allowed to commit atrocities against other people. And then I can say, well, I only sold crack and did drive-bys and beat my woman because I'm under Western oppression. I don't understand how the rules change. I don't understand how the rules or the values or the ethics. What was a long time ago? What was a long time ago? Do you consider 3 seconds ago a long time ago? I'm talking about right now, today. Everything I said is going on right now. What long time ago? So if I can show you evidence that it's happening now, African colonization was a long time ago. You know, my wife was talking to a Palestinian, and he said that same thing to her. He said those Arabs in North Africa, it's theirs now. It's time's up. I didn't know there was a statute of limitation on colonization, but apparently there is. And she asked him, how long will the Zionists be in Palestine before it's their land? He said, never. He said they could be there 1,000,000 years. It'll never be their land. And we might as well tell the Native Americans to shut up too, right? It's been a couple of 100 years. How long before the natives have to shut up? How long before the Aboriginals in Australia? Because the North Africans, we should shut up about that. The Berbers are also Africans, black Africans in Egypt. You're talking about the people that stripped the I ain't gonna get into this. How can you be not African but indigenous at the same time? I think you need to go holler at Dr. Ben. Go read Chancellor Williams. Go read the destruction of black civilization and get back to me. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, I'm sorry. That's why I don't be reading the comments. Y'all, I be wanting to read the comments so I can start it, but that's why I don't be reading the comments. What else? As far as these, I want to say, eat a fiber, nutrient-rich, to the extent that you can, localized, diverse diet. Whole foods. Processed foods are not all bad if we really to understand what. I think black Africans should focus on East, West, and South. Just give up the whole northern end. Decapitate the fucking continent. Just forget it. And it's not that, I had a brother go to Egypt. And he came back to Chicago and was like, man, I couldn't believe all these black people I was seeing in Egypt. Word. I think Native Americans should just focus on the reservations. I think Palestinians should focus on Gaza and the West Bank. I think the Irish should have just left the Northern Ireland to the Brits. I think the Aboriginal people of Australia should just focus on the coastal regions. I think the natives and indigenous people of the Caribbean, of Central and South America, should just focus on the little plots of land they've been left to go. And I know y'all think she's trolling, but you don't know how many African people I have this discussion, how many Arabized, Islamic, and accommodationist black people that are willing to roll over on that. Oh, let's focus on the European atrocities. There's a lot of black people uncomfortable talking about Arab racism, Arab colonization, Islamicist aggressions against African people, even though the Arab slave trade predates the African slave trade. And it's easier. I've talked to Arabs who are more understanding and accepting of this fact than African people. Africa rescued Islam when Islam was in its infancy. There would be no Islam if it wasn't for the Ethiopians. And Islam has been on an ongoing, unrelenting attack against all things indigenous to Africa, from our African spiritual systems to our African values and customs. Trying to convert or kill us has been their policy. But I can't talk about that. And like I said, when I bring these issues up to other Arabs, they're like, yeah, I know. Because they've been in rooms with their cousins, their brothers, and seen the Arab racism, the anti-Blackism in the Arab community. And they say, right now downstairs, I've been invited to speak to groups of Palestinians. But Black people don't want to make, well, we just focusing on the white man for now. As if we don't have other oppressors, other colonizers, other people targeting us. But I digress. What was I saying? Again. Oh, what was I saying? In terms of diet, try to get your heart rate up on a day-to-day basis. You don't have to get out here like James and pump iron. You ain't got to walk around diesel. You could be like me and just walk, take the stairs. And I know these little things are not mitigates, but you want to get your heart rate up. You want to break in a small step. Some push-ups, some sit-ups, a walk around the block a couple of times. You want to get physical exercise, especially if you work a desk job, if you don't really work outside. Get outside, walk around, move around. Yeah, you ain't got to, don't be like James. Don't look at James and be like, I'll never get there, so don't even try. You can stay down here with the rest of us. You ain't got to be diesel, but you got to do something physical. If there's something you like, basketball, get back out there, dribble around, even find some isolated court where nobody be at and just go in and try to get your game up. You want to get physical exercise. You want to stimulate your mind. You can play puzzle games. You can play like strategy games. There are games where you have to gather resources, manage trade. You need to stimulate your mind. Read. And I don't just mean read for entertainment, read for enjoyment, interpret, take up art, drawing. You want to stimulate your mind. You want to stimulate your body. You want to have a diet that nourishes and sustains you. After that, that's just the step one. Step two, you have to get out here and work for single player healthcare, lobby for healthcare. You have to start to educate yourself in your community about what is science, what is the scientific method, what are valid and confirmed treatments. You need to learn about iatrogenesis. Iatrogenics, which means the problems caused by treatment. Many times our community is afflicted with ailments and diseases, and we die from the treatment before we even get a chance to experience the worst ravages of the disease. So iatrogenesis is a big issue. We need to start to educate our community. We need to start making our facilities. And a lot of times people talk, well, we need our own schools, we need our own this, we need our own that. I am not a big proponent of having our own. And this is why. Many of these institutions are public institutions, or they provide service to the public. And if we surrender, we've already had our tax dollars, our labor, our resources, and our ancestors have worked to build up this infrastructure and institutions. And every generation, we just walk away from it and try to build up something new. That is pretty much inefficient. It is best to get control over the public health facilities that already exist than walk away and create new. So these health facilities, from your local health department to your public clinics and your public that provide service that is answerable and obligated to the public. And if something service or if an institution serves the public, it needs to be answerable, overseen, and corrected by the public. And I tell you now that the profit motive is here. Litigation is a big motivator. Not even litigation, but the threat or potential for litigation. So African people, we need to get very familiar with the legal process. And that don't mean walking in your doctor's office and screaming, if you fuck with me, I'm gonna sue you. But it does mean understanding what your rights are and understanding the processes you take if your rights as a person, as a patient or a recipient of service is violated. And the Republican Party specifically is working very hard to upend and make it more difficult to bring about litigation, civil lawsuits, and class action lawsuits. You've been subjected to our whole lives with these negative attitudes about, oh, ambulance chasers and these, oh, greedy lawyers. But the thing about a greedy lawyer, those are one group of people that don't fuck with broke people. They only go where the money is. So we should change the narrative about these greedy lawyers. Because if I'm a greedy lawyer, I'm not suing somebody who's broke. But you got a multi-billion-dollar healthcare institution, a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company. You got somebody with money harming people with no money, then that's who they go after. And that's why so much of the media, you notice in popular corporate capitalist media, oh, these unions are so corrupt. That's all you ever see in the movie. Oh, these lawyers, they hate these fucking lawyers. And let me tell you, having worked in healthcare for over a decade, ain't a word more dirty in the hospital than suit, lawsuit, malpractice. So you ain't got to threaten, but you need to know your rights as a patient, and you need to know the resources available to you if those rights are not fully respected and enacted. You also need to understand the lobbying and public policy oversight and regulatory process. Your local and politicians, state, and even congressional, we need to start bringing this up. We need to bring this to the fore. There is a lot of acknowledgement now and research, peer-reviewed, validated research about racism and discrimination. Racism is now being discussed by public health professionals. Racism is a public health crisis of racism. So all I'm saying is, as you take steps to secure your personal individual well-being and health, you need to join the struggle for a societal scale, systemic scale transformation of healthcare industry, pharmaceutical industry, transforming how public and clinical studies are executed, who is part of the clinical studies. Most of the dosages and treatment plans are scaled towards middle-aged white males. All of us are by and large, receiving the type of health care that is most beneficial. The dosage, the prognosis, the treatment remedies are scaled towards white men of middle-age status. So even when we get the right treatment, it's in the wrong dosage. The processes are not scaled towards African people's physiology and unique conditions and environmental exposure and historical, biological, epigenetic reality. So this is a collective struggle, as important as the struggle for reparation, as important as the struggle for liberation, Pan-Africanism, or even if you're so inclined, for civil rights and human rights. Profits and racism are causing our premature death. And many of our people saying, just eat alfalfa sprouts and meditate and do yoga. Many of our people are health gurus that aren't telling us this is a political, economic, and even it's political, economic, and cultural. Holistic health, African life expectancy, and quality of life must be an integral part of the Pan-African political and cultural revolution. There are no individual solutions, cures, or remedies for collective problems. And so that's it. And it hurts me to see so many people, of our icons losing their lives prematurely. And what we often don't see, because this society likes to hide people who are suffering from ailments, they stuff them away in homes, and they are not a part of society. That's another thing for disabled people. I'm very happy to see in Chicago, there's been a lot of accommodations for people who are bound by wheelchair and other disabled people This city is, I see a lot of changes being made, and I had actually went to a public talk where they had disabled people and people suffering from various congenital issues talking about what it's like, and I learned about the word handicap and how that's offensive, and how the city is slow but making accommodations for people, traffic signals, sidewalks, accommodating people. So you also want to make sure that the society that we live in is humane and accommodating for people who are not of what we would define as health or quote unquote normal. Yeah, yeah, it was terrible when I first moved here too. But if you go out and just, if you're out in areas, Brownsville, downtown, I see a lot of the crossing lights are accommodating. Like just on my block, 2 blocks from me, there's a main street, uh, and I'm just off Martin Luther King. They have the sound crossing for vision impaired people. They have the sound crossing. All of the sidewalks and intersections around here, they're putting in wheelchair accessible curves and crosswalks. I'm just saying, give credit where credit is due. Shout out to the pernicious, vicious scumbag Democrats, because you live in a blue city. It has its shout out to the city council and the mayor's office. They have prioritized that, as well as making the city more accessible for cyclists. There's so many bike lanes every time I turn. They're actually reducing automobile lanes and making the automobile access, reducing that to expand bike access up and down, like I said, King Drive, Cottage Grove, throughout downtown. So anyway, there are some accommodations being made. Also, I think that health should be more communal. There's a lot of times health and fitness is personalized and individualized, or it's done for profit. For a long time, we had freedom fighters here, and we were stressing communal fitness, just community walks. A lot of times, people live in neighborhoods where they don't feel safe to go out and just walk on their own. A lot of times, people don't have time to walk during the day, daylight hours, and they have to get home, make dinner and stuff, and they might have to walk after dinner or evening. And if you could make community walks, community bike rides for people of all skill levels, I really appreciate, and I've been on more than a few bike rides in the community, but a lot of these cycle groups, you would swear you were training for the Tour de France. So I think more of the cycling groups need to make time for group cycling for people. Now, I haven't had any troubles, but for smaller people who have children on strollers and stuff, like, or the bike, what do they call that thing? The Burleys and the children in the thing. You have some less skilled, less capable bikers. So slowing down the pace, making sure the route, shortening or amending the route, and just accommodating people who aren't regular bikers. Not everybody can just get out here and go at the pace and go the distance. So I think that especially the cycling community, if you want to get more people into cycling, if you slow down the pace and make the route more accommodating to people who aren't as skilled as or confident in cycling, because they only do those things for people, these bike douches who are really into it, or what they call them, the lakeshore torpedoes. And cats come out all spandexed with those bullet helmets. Talking to you, Chauncey. Sometimes we just want to come out in some cargo shorts and a t-shirt and just ride casual, easy, low impact. So that's that. But your personal fitness journey should translate into collective advocacy, work, and organizing for our collective well-being. Also, getting the lead and other volatile organic compounds, the VOCs, the toxic polluting elements, paints, fire retardants, other hormone mimicking things. So try to purify your local environment. Get an air purifier, a couple of them. When you buy air purifiers, they especially if you have children that struggle with asthma, allergies and stuff, little dust mites. So you get a little just air purification. It used to be a fancy thing, but now you could just go to Costco and get a couple of air purifiers, depending on the size of your house. I think one air purifier can do like 1,500 feet. Put them in the main rooms. Make sure when you're cooking, your stove is on, especially if you have a gas stove. Make sure you turn on the ventilation. If you don't have ventilation, open a couple of windows when you prepare your food over the stove. You know, there's little things. And the information is out there. But generally, when you go looking for health advice, you're going to be bombarded by bullshit gurus. So your discernment is a part of research. So anyway, let me pass the deal. I apologize for that. Divergence. Y'all know how I like to stay on topic and focus. I'm sorry I didn't get to Q&A. Skip and I are going to do. We did an assessment of Donald Trump's political platform, and it took up the whole time. So I'm going to holler at Skip over on African World Order, and we're going to discuss. So go subscribe on YouTube to African World Order. You see it going down the thing right there. Subscribe to African World Order. So we're going to come back and do a review and assessment of candidate Kamala Harris's plan as well. So watch for that. And if you're subscribed to African World Order, you should get the notification for that. Shout out to all the subscribers. That new page is growing fast and steadily. And then thanks to y'all. And of course, if you appreciate the BroDiallo broadcast, I'm going to be back on it. Like I said, I didn't intend to talk about chronic disease, but I think chronic disease should get more attention and more discussion. And if you are an organization talking about uplifting, betterment, liberation of African people, you should be you should be I'm sorry, I'm Prester's here late. You should, if what was I saying? I completely lost. Anyway, like, share, subscribe. You support the BroDiallo broadcast. There's different ways for you to support and sustain the BroDiallo show through Patreon, CashApp, one-time donation, Venmo, one-time donation, or ongoing recurring donation through Patreon to help sustain the show. And just show some love, okay? And y'all know how I struggle to pass around the digital collection plate, but I got to do it. Anyway, I appreciate y'all. I'm sorry we didn't get to Q&A. There were some things I wanted to address. But I don't really have time to. So hopefully next time. No hope. Hope is dope. Definitely next time I'm going to make time for Q&A. Even if I have to just stop short. If I have to just cut everything off. But yes, final word. You can't be serious about liberating African people if that process from oppression to liberation, along that process, there isn't also an ongoing campaign of creating and sustaining health, individual and collective health for African people. And that's all. So until next time, I appreciate y'all. And like, share, subscribe, share with your friends, allies, enemies, lovers, and haters. And I'll see y'all next Monday.